Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Southern Fire Exchange webinar today. My name is David Godwin, and I'm the director of the Southern Fire Exchange with the University of Florida. I'm here today with Christian Fernandez, our outreach specialist with the Southern Fire Exchange. Today, as we said earlier, our presenters today are Dr. Holly Nowell and Karen Cummins. Dr. Holly Nowell is the director of the Smoke Science Program at Tall Timbers, leading research on prescribed fire detection, emissions modeling, and smoke management. With a PhD in meteorology from Florida State University, she focuses on translating research into actionable strategies for fire-adapted landscapes. She collaborates closely with local land managers and forestry agencies to help communities balance fire risk, ecosystem health, air quality, making science practical and relevant for both people and the environment. And our other speaker today, we welcome Karen Cummins. Karen has 20 years experience applying geospatial technologies as a decision-making tool to prioritize conservation areas and environmental impacts. She's previously managed grant projects and served on project advisory committees for forestry and environmental restoration. Karen has an MS in rangeland ecology from Texas A&M University and currently works at Tall Timbers Research Station and Land Conservancy as the Geospatial Program Director. Whew. So with all that, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you on today. We have great turnout, over 200 folks. So a lot of interest in this topic. We originally were going to have this back in December, but Holly and Karen have worked together to help us to reschedule when everything lined up just right. And we're excited to finally get through this presentation, see what the new updates are, and to do a live demonstration of the prescribed burn planner tool. So 1 second as we trade out slides.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming to join us today for the prescribed burner version 2. This application's at rxburnplanner.com. You can also scan this QR code and get the link as well. So like David said, I'm Karen Cummins. I'm the Geospatial Program Director at Tall Timbers. Again, we also have Dr. Holly Nowell. She is our Smoke Science Director, and she's going to be talking to you more about the smoke plume and the weather forecasting. We definitely wanted to mention that this was all funded by the U.S. Forest Service Region 8. And we wanted to thank our supporters, the Southern Group of State Foresters, the Florida Forest Service, the Florida Park Service, and the Georgia Forestry Commission. And I know this sounds very southeastern, but anybody in the United States can use this application. So we'd love to hear from you if you're out west or in the Northeast or Midwest. So why did we do this burn planner? How is this going to help land managers? Well, it'll help you set preferred weather conditions for your burn. It will track when forecasts match these conditions. And then it will prioritize objectives and your burn areas. And then you can also carry out your burns during that optimal window. You can also view a forecasted smoke plume and then identify potentially affected sensitive areas. And so when you get onto the application, this is your welcome screen. So you get a description of what it's about. You get what are the features in version 2. My contact information is at the bottom there. You're always welcome to reach out to Holly too. And if it's more of a weather related question you have, I'll probably forward it to her. We also have a development team if you experience a bug. So we'll try and get those resolved if there's any. We also have a sign up if you're a new user. So they'll ask you some information about yourself. And then just the regular login is in that upper right-hand corner. So if you already have an account, maybe you started an account in version 1, that will all port over as well as your data. Just let me know if you have any problems with that. So when you first log in, it'll open up the burn map for you right off. And there's if you look at the top right, there's a sequence of tabs. There's a burn map, a burn list, and then you get this user help. So I would advise to look at that full user guide. If you're drawing burn units for the first time on a map, you might want to look at those videos. That would be very helpful. And then you have these main map tools that we have to interact with your burn unit. So we have an identify, a draw tool, and then your legend up at the top. And then you can also search by coordinates. So you can just put in a latitude, longitude. You can do a smart search, which will do your locality, your town, city, a zip code. There's also a little filter tool in that corner area where you can pop that out and you can just look at certain burns that are perhaps high priority or the ones that are ready to burn. You can just look at those if you'd like. And then at the right side, those are all your main map tools. So you have a zoom in, a zoom out tool. You have a way to change out that base map. If you don't want the imagery, you can look at a street map. If you want to turn on some layers, there's some other just base layers, as well as some smoke sensitive areas you can look at, nursing homes, airports, schools. So the first thing we'll do is select a burn unit that we already have. So, and this will bring up our identity tool at the left. So it'll show you all your attributes. You can also manage those burn unit details. So if you want to edit that shape or edit the attributes, you can just click on that manage burn unit details. You can also update the forecast data that's right there. And then you can see what preferred burn conditions you had put in for that burn unit. The next tool is the draw tool. So you can either generate a simple square, say you don't have time or you're not familiar with mapping, you can just do a simple square, just put a point in the middle of your burn unit and you can stretch out this very square, it's just a square. It can be 100 acres to 100,000 acres, and it'll just save it as that, and you can go back and edit it if you want to. You can also do a more complex polygon, so you can put vertices and make it the shape a little bit more complex if you like, and it'll adjust your acres as you draw it. And whether you're doing a simple or complex one, it'll also ask you, some attributes. So basic information, what is your unit's name? What sort of general burn window do you want? It'll automatically calculate the acres and your locality, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you have to put the priority in, the status, and we'll talk about active, inactive in a bit. We also have the fuels and ignition method, and that will help out with the simple smoke plume model that we have. And then you just save your burn unit. And a lot of people ask, well, I've already got burn units. I want to be able to import them or export them out. We don't have that functionality yet. We really want to do that in version 3. So that's hopefully coming. And then the next tab is the legend. So this just describes what do those colors mean for each of my burn units, and they are related to your preferred weather conditions that you put in for that burn unit. And it'll just tell you how close they are. So if you get 75% or more of your weather conditions, if they're met, you'll see a high, they're high, they'll be green. So that means it's ready to burn according to your preferred weather conditions that you put in. And it'll be so when you're seeing it on the map, that's for that day. If it's yellow, that means 40 to 74% were met. So some of them were met and some of them weren't. If it's less than 40%, it'll just show up as red. It means it's perhaps not a good time to burn. You also may see gray. Those are inactive burns, or perhaps they were undefined. If you didn't put any preferred weather conditions, it'll show up as gray. You'll see that a lot if you were on version 1 and you ported your data over. You're going to have to put in some required attribute information to make those active again. Oops. So the next tab over on the top right is the burn list. You can, again, look at all your burn units, but it's in a tabular fashion. So, and you can use that filter by attributes. So in this example, I'm looking at all my active burns and they have upcoming go days, or they're green. There's a green within the next 7 days, there's a good opportunity where I can burn. So those are the ones I want to look at. You can also do just high priority burns. You can do a date range and just do an apply. So any of those inactive burns that those gray ones, you can kind of filter them out so you don't have to look at them. So as we look at the table, you can see, it's got your burn unit name, whether it's active or not, and then the same color coding, the burn forecast. And you can, as you go across those blocks, it'll tell you the percent met, it'll tell you what day that is too. So if you want to look at those all together, that's there. And then your locality, priority, and that's what your priority is what you set. So if it's a high priority burn, you can put that in there. And then your drawn acres and then the date last burned. So, and that's also, you can track if you've actually done a burn, and Holly will discuss that more, but that'll have the date last burned in there. You can also go back and view it on the map. You can go to manage unit, and manage unit means you can, again, edit the shape of that burn, the attributes, manage the weather preferences that you want, view the smoke plume as well as the smoke sensitive areas, and then the burn history as we discussed. So I'm next going to go to the manage unit. So I'm going to go to this particular burn. And so you'll see on the left-hand side there, under details, there's burn unit overview, which is where you can edit all that information and edit the geometry of that burn unit. You can also look at the weather and smoke behavior and set your weather preferences, and then the burn event. So those are your actual burns that you've done. So I'm just going to talk about the burn unit overview. So if, say, you want to go, I want to make this polygon more complex. I want to, instead of just a square, I want to expand it out. I'll hit that edit burn area, and I'll add some vertices, and it'll start recalculating my acres as I enlarge it. And say I want to get rid of the whole drawing, I can do the clear drawing, but I'm going to have to put something in. It's not going to let you delete the polygon. So you can start over, but you're going to have to put something in. And then you can go in and edit the attributes, and that same form will pop up, and most of them are required. So you're going to have to, have something for those. And then as we discussed, there's active and inactive burns. So you'll notice on the bottom right-hand corner, there's an inactivate burn unit. So that's about as good as you're going to get. Like if you want to delete something and you just want to not see a burn unit, you can just inactivate it. So, and then, whenever you want to bring it up again and modify it, you can do it then. But that's just one option. And then you can also, this is the other place where you manage your email subscriptions. So when you get some really good weather and your burn units turn green, you can get an email notification. So by default, it's not going to do it. You have to turn it on. So that little button in the upper right-hand corner, you turn that on, and then you can also add other people. So here I've done an example where I've added Holly in, and you just add your subscribers. And so it'll send them, so when you have great go days, it'll send everybody a notification. And if you're not managing it, it'll just go to Google Maps. So Holly would just get a Google Maps link where she could go to that and at least see where the burn is located. So I'm going to switch off. We're going to let Holly discuss the weather forecasting and the smoke plume, since I know y'all have a lot of questions about that.
All right, thanks, Karen. So Sorry for the little transition. Thought it would be easier to do that than switch computers around. But as Karen said, I'm going to discuss the weather and smoke. And so if you go back to that manage burn unit details and you click on the weather and smoke behavior link, the first thing you're going to see is you're going to see the smoke plume. So you'll see an outline of your burn unit here. Mine is just in white. And then you're going to notice that you have two sections of the smoke plume. You have this orange/red section, depending on what background layer you choose in your computing system. It might be red, mine looks orange. And then you also have this yellow component to your smoke plume. And what that means is that those red or orange zones that you see, that is the most probable smoke impact area. So that is where your smoke is likely to hit. And in that yellow, that's kind of where your smoke might go. And that you should just be aware of. But what's really nice is if you scroll a little bit further down, you're going to get a list of smoke sensitive areas that are color coded. So the warnings that you see that are in yellow, those are the areas that are going to be in that yellow section of your smoke plume. And I cut it off so it would fit on the slide, but on the right hand side, there's a drop down arrow. So you could see we have 2 transportation warnings. Our smoke might hit Interstate 10, which is not ideal. And then down here, you see USA structures, critical. 11 of them are going to be in that red/orange zone. And why there's so many here, those actually include housing units, and mobile homes and everything like that. So maybe if you see 2,000 homes are going to be hit in your critical area, maybe that's not exactly where you want to send your smoke that day. But I will caution that this is just for guidance only. This is not a guarantee your smoke will hit there. And it's not guaranteed that your smoke won't go outside of these bounds, because this is just a simple smoke model. And that simple smoke model is derived from the Forest Service Introduction to Prescribed Fire Ecosystems. And so the top figure A, that's assuming we have a point location, but we have a polygon because you're drawing either those squares or the shape of your burn unit. So it's more like figure B. So you see right here that this vector, that arrow, that's the transport wind direction. So from here, it's coming from the southwest, and we're going out 30 degrees on either side, either from the point or from the most right-hand side or the most left-hand side of our burned area polygon. So that is what it's assuming that the smoke is going to go. And then also plume length, you could see that it had some length to it. Well, that is just derived from basically a lookup table on fuel consumption. And that is from the guidebook for prescribed burning for the southern region. And it's based on average fuel loading. So one of the things Karen showed, is it grass or is it slash? And if you have slash, your plume's going to go out a lot further than it would be if you select grass or shrub or something like that. And similarly, your ignition method. So if you choose aerial versus backing, your plume lengths are going to be different. So that's why we say it's for guidance only, because it does not take into account complex meteorology that a lot of like high split or those other plume models do. And it does not take into account topography. It's just right now a very simple model. But one of the things you could also do with it is that, I don't know if you noticed on the screen, but you can adjust the plume directional degrees. So since this is just for guidance, if you're not familiar with your burned area, maybe you don't know what sensitive areas are all around you. Interstate 10 is pretty obvious, but maybe you didn't know that there are 2,000 homes between you and where your smoke plume is supposed to end. So you could really use the prescribed burn planner to figure that out. And you could go back to, I just cut it off so I could fit it on the screen, but you could go back to that smoke plume. And right here, you've got transport wind direction and directional degrees. So that transport wind direction, it's going to change where your smoke's coming from, or that transport wind's coming from and where your smoke is going to. So you could play with that. And then you could look at the smoke sensitive areas and you could start thinking, hey, the north and northeast winds are really bad for me from that previous example because they're blowing straight into the city of Tallahassee. But if I have a south wind, the amount of sensitive areas I'm going to hit are way less. So then it just starts helping you learn about smoke in your particular burn area and what will and will not work for smoke management. And so if you scroll even further down, you're going to get your fire weather behaviors and your fire weather. And so I have this big box up in the corner to remind me to mention that if you tried it in between the launch of Prescribed Burn Planner 2, which I believe was towards the end of last year, up until February 12th, and you're like, I don't understand the weather, I don't understand where it's coming from, the weather doesn't look good, we fully agreed with you. And it took us a while, but we found there was a bug when it was importing the weather data. And so that has since been corrected. So if you gave up on it because the weather didn't look good, we really encourage you to give it another chance, because Karen and I check multiple times a week and everything still lines up since it's been corrected. But you'll notice that this matrix is white. And you may also notice that there is a preferred column next to these 12 different conditions. And so you can actually choose what you prefer and what kind of fire behavior you want by setting the ranges for each one of these. So you can go to the edit conditions button right here, and it will pop up where you can put in ranges for your temperature or your relative humidity. And this is kind of where playing with that plume comes in handy, because down here, there are transport wind directions. So for that previous example, I know I don't want anything from the Northeast because that's going to blow my smoke into Tallahassee. So I won't select that. And so you can put it in for all of these different variables, and then you're going to get a color-coded matrix like this. So I'll have a slide later that shows how each one of these colors are calculated, but you'll be able to graphically see and look at the top how many of your conditions are met and whether or not it's going to be a good burn day for your area. Now, I recently grabbed this, and it's not great fire weather around us for multiple reasons. Not, the drought also, but just looking at this fire weather forecast. So I wanted to talk about where does this weather come from? Because depending on what you look at, it might be different from the site. So we went with fire weather forecast straight from the National Weather Service. They have an API where we can pull point location data. So we find a centroid for your fire polygon, and we go there, and then we pull the hourly weather forecasts. And if you've spent any time on the National Weather Service web pages, eventually you can get to a graph like this. So obviously we're not pulling the graphical format, but we're pulling all the data that goes into the hourly forecast. Now, if you think about the matrix, we're obviously not showing the hourly data. So what are we doing with this National Weather Service data? What are the meteorological variables you're seeing? Well, going back to this particular one, full of reds and everything like that, we are pulling this. So we don't have this sheet up on the prescribed burn planner right now. We're working on that. But if you email me or Karen, we can get that to you. So for all the daytime variables, except for Livory, which is overnight, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., we're looking for example, the max daytime temperature. So what is it between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.? What's the highest? And then relative humidity, we're pulling the lowest because that's what you're interested in when it comes to fire behavior. And then for wind speed, you can choose a range, same with transport wind speed. Wind direction is going to be the prevailing wind for that day. So again, this is just for guidance because we can say, oh, the wind is coming from the northwest that day. But as we all know, if you burn fires, sometimes it can shift. So this is really just to give you an overall picture and encourage you to kind of dig deeper into the weather forecasts. And I don't have a screenshot of it here, but at the bottom of each one of your pages where it has the weather, it has a link to click out to view the weather forecasts as well. So you'll be able to go to the page and explore for yourself. And you could also update this throughout the day. There's a trigger where you could click update forecast and it'll update. It does a 5 a.m. pull every morning automatically to populate everything. But if you want a 10 a.m. refresh, you can also pull that as well. So this is where the logic also comes in. So if any of your variables are green, that means that it's in between the ranges you gave. If it's yellow, not all of them have yellow. It's more for the range ones, like the wind speed. So that means that one of your winds is in between that maximum and minimum and the other one's outside. So you kind of have it. Red means it's just outside of what you want fully. So again, going back to this, we don't really have any good burn days coming up. So I wanted to show an example where we did have some good burn days coming up. So this is back from last year. And you'll also notice that sometimes not everything's populated. So you'll get an NA. So this particular forecast only went out for 3 or 4 days for the wind speed and direction in Livory, so they're NA. Some National Weather Service forecast offices, they don't forecast Livory, so that will be NA. So it really depends on what the local Weather Service branch reports for where your burn location is at. But you'll see that there are a couple of good burn days, so that this is going to trigger what Karen was talking about earlier. It's going to give you an email notice. So I pulled an email notice that I have gotten for an even better set of burn days earlier this year. So earlier this month for Missouri. But if you have 75% or above, if that day is green, it's going to send you an email. So this email, as Karen was saying, it has manage burn unit. So if I click on manage burn unit, that's going to take me to what you were just seeing in the prescribed burn planner. But if Karen owns this and Karen subscribes it to me so I could see her burns, I'm just going to get a Google Maps link because I don't own it. I can't edit it, but this will allow me to go in and see it. And what's nice is you're going to get this once a day. So even if you have 200 units and 50 of them have green days, it's going to include all 50 of them in your email. So you're not going to get 50 separate emails for each and every one. And then currently it's just going to list your range of preferred conditions and just give you a little bit more information about the burn. And so this is everything I just already described. And what it doesn't currently do that we are thinking about adding on in the future is that it doesn't list preferred conditions. It lists preferred conditions, but it doesn't list the current forecast conditions. So maybe including that as well in the email so you can instantly see, okay, what's my temperature? What's my relative humidity based on the matrix? And the last thing that you could click on is burn events. So you can go ahead, and Karen also mentioned this, where you can add your fire history. So as you know, like I said, all this is free, but it's new. So maybe you have a stack of papers, maybe you know you've burned it every other year and you just want to get it all in one place. And so you could do that. You could click this add new burn event, and it's going to allow you to to backdate everything. So if you had to burn last year, this 900 acre hand pile burn, which is definitely worth recording because that's amazing hand pile size to have. But it allows you to enter in other information such as you got your permit for 973 acres, but only 600 acres actually burned. You could put it in burn event notes. You could say, hey, this didn't carry as well as I thought it would, or I had a northeast wind and it ended up smoking the town, out next to me. And you could actually put down your weather conditions too. So as you start compiling these, you could go back and you could look at your previous burns and you could kind of see, hey, is something correlating here? Maybe I want to change the actual weather conditions I burn under, and it will all be there in one place. And so then you will end up with something like this, where you have a list of where you can see the planned date, the actual date, whether or not you canceled it, the treatment type, the planned acres, and the actual acres. So you'll just have all that information available and won't have to keep track of it across multiple systems. So just in summary, this new version of the prescribed burn planner, we have these enhanced weather parameters. We have smoke planning and modeling. Smoke was not a part of it before. Now you could track completed burns. And there is some integration with the National Association of State Foresters National Fuels Treatment Tracking Database. So they can start, generating reports about keeping tabs on prescribed burning in the region. And then it has these email notifications. And Karen and I have a list that we share between each other. So we had this generous funding from the Forest Service Region 8, and we got everything we could. And of course, there was always more features we wanted. We had to prioritize what made it into this version. And we are actively applying for more grants all the time to come out with a version 3, even though we just launched version 2. And we have a list of what we wanted. And then we hear from you. We hear from people that use it. And we keep track of what everyone has requested and kind of rank, like, this is the most requested feature. And some of them are printing out burn plans. They want to be able to print out everything they have here, whether that's to submit to their agency, if you're a state agency, or if you want to have it just in case you get an on-site visit, want to be able to provide that functionality. So that's one of the top requests. Another big one is uploading burn unit data. So if you already have all your burn units as a CSV with lawn locations, if you can load it in and it just populates that square, or if you have shape files already, that has been a very large request. So you're not having to do individual units if you already have them somewhere else. And so this is the questions slide, but I kind of lied because we're going to come back to this slide because we have a few minutes where I'm just going to do a really quick walkthrough of what it looks like if you're logging in. I'm not going to belabor anything because we've just went through all these slides of how everything works, but just thought it might be interesting to see how the burn planner actually works. So as Karen was showing, like this is the screen you're going to have. Now, right now we have this banner again for the meteorology updates. So anytime, hopefully there won't be any more, but if we have to make an update or if we have to have a request or a big update, if there was a big bug we fixed, we're going to put a banner up here. Some of you also contacted us a couple of weeks ago. We pushed through a minor update to change the way a list was sorted on the back end, and then it ended up breaking. And it took us a few days to realize it was broken, but then we got it up and running again. So we always, if you notice something's wrong, please let us know. And we work with the Timmons group who actually developed everything. They host it, they help us keep it up and running. But any big updates like the meteorology update are going to go on this banner. And so Karen already pointed out the sign up. And if you have any issues with that, contact Karen. But then we just go to the login, and as she said, this is exactly where you end up. So this is, you go to a burn map, you can zoom in on your units. So I have these circles right here that are gray. And if I click on one of those and go to manage burn unit details, it's gray because I didn't put in any of my preferred weather conditions yet. I've just left it. So if I go to the weather and smoke behavior, I'm going to get that table. That's that white table. And so right now it's showing me, hey, if I burn this particular area, it's going to blow right over the northern part of the city of Tallahassee. I could see that I've got some public schools, and it's going to list all the public schools that are going to be within my smoke plume. And then, like I said earlier, I can go up here and say, okay, well, what if I have winds out of the southwest? And then it's going to update my smoke sensitive areas. And then I see I have quite a few, but those are those structures again. So those are housing and agricultural fields in the critical areas. And you can see some community centers. So you'll be able to drop down, and it actually gives the addresses of these places too. So you can look those up as well. So that's how you can kind of play around and start learning about how smoke behavior is going to act on your particular burn. But if you don't like it at all, there's also the option just to turn off the smoke plume. And then burn unit overview, you could go in here and some of mine. So if I go back to my burn map and zoom out, some of mine are, let's see if I can find one. This one right here. And if I go to manage burn unit details, this tells me down here that this burn unit was transferred from the legacy system. So if you did have a version 1 of the prescribed burn planner, it brought everything over for you. And you could tell right away what it is because it's going to be this circle. And I have updated this, but when it brings it over, not all this information is there. So if you wanted to generate a smoke plume, for example, you would have to go in and edit and make sure that you've got your burn window and the priority, but especially the fuels and the ignition method, because that's what's going to help generate your smoke plume. So some of those legacy ones, if you have them, are not going to have a smoke plume generated right away. So I think another thing that I like to look at is it has this burn list. So if I wanted to look at all my burns, so if I had a group of 15 burns or something like that, I can look and say, okay, well, I have some really bad burn days today. Like everything is yellow, nothing, like most of my criteria is not going to be met, but I have this one test burn right here where I've got a couple of green days coming up. So then I could go to the managed unit and I could go to the weather and smoke behavior, and I could go look at those days. And right away, I noticed something because right on the 30th, 82% of my conditions are met, but the 2 conditions that aren't met means that I'm going to get 0.4 of an inch of rain. So it's really not a great burn day. So even if it tells you it's a green burn day, you still have to go and look and see what is making it not 100%. But the first looks pretty good. So maybe I burn on the 1st, or maybe I don't mind that, oh, my wind speed's a little bit less and my transport wind speed's a little bit less. Maybe I'll go ahead and burn that day as well. So maybe just because it says it's yellow, maybe it's not really a yellow day for me. Maybe I can accept how far it is outside of my range. So that is just a brief rundown of the prescribed burn planner. I'll go ahead and go back to the presentation, and I will leave this up so that everyone can see the QR code and our email addresses if you have anything you want to email us after the fact. But I think I've said everything I need to say, and Karen's right over here, so I think we could go ahead and take any questions. I'll just leave this up for another few minutes.
All right. Well, thank you, Holly. Thank you, Karen. Great presentation. Enjoyed it. A lot of questions that are coming into the chat and the Q&A tool. Just once again, my name is David Godwin. This is Holly Nowell and Karen Cummins with Tall Timbers, talking about the new prescribed burn planner tool. We have time remaining to get through questions. I've been watching the questions come in the Q&A tool. A lot of interest, a lot of excitement here. So that's really cool. If you do have questions, please don't put them in the chat. Please make sure you get those into the Q&A tool. I see that Christian's already put their email addresses there in the chat as well. So if you want to copy those and paste them over, you can follow up with them afterwards. All right. So I'm going to go through these questions and we're going to see how many of these we can get through. Okay. And if you see questions that you are interested in us getting to, you can give it the little thumbs up there in the Q&A tool, and it'll help us to prioritize. So I think you already touched on this briefly, but question from Patty: any plans to add an option to upload burn unit shape files? Two other thumbs ups on that one.
Yes, yeah, it's one. I think it is our top priority. Yes. It's the most requested by far. We get from everybody when we do these presentations or emails. We tried to get it in. We ran out of money, but we are, like I said, we're actively applying to grants. But yeah, that's definitely on the top of the list.
All right, very good. All right, so stay tuned is the answer, right?
Yes.
All right, question from Joe. Joe says, if I have several burn units in my program, how does my burner share these details with me? Okay, so it sounds like questions about what if you have a team or if you have a contract burner or you're working collaboratively. How does that work?
Well, you can add them to your email subscription. They'll be on the email notices. Now, if they don't own the burn itself, they'll be able to see it in Google Maps and they can kind of check the weather. There has been another, that's an enhancement request where we have a team of people inside the burn planner where they can share the burn unit and all kind of look at it together and maybe have one person manage and then other people can see what's going on. So that's another enhancement that people have requested. So
we're not there yet. Is that what I'm hearing? Or are we?
Correct. It's just the email subscriptions right now. But as Karen was saying, we've been talking with, if you are familiar with Tall Timbers, we have prescribed burn associations. We have there are now fire applications, but the private lands burn team, we've been working with them and they've been giving us a lot of feedback about how to include PBAs, for example, and how to make it better so that they can all go in and share, or they can, if they're a PBA coordinator, they can check the burns of the members and everything like that. So that's an enhancement we've been discussing behind the scenes, like how can we best make that feature for everyone.
So in the meantime, for right now, you'd have one manager who populates all the burns, but you could have multiple subscribers that other people will also get the notifications when they come around. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So the workaround in the time being is one manager, multiple email subscribers for the same set of burn units.
Yeah, they'll get the daily email, and if they own any units, their units will be on there. And then Karen, I'm subscribed to several of Karen's. Her units will be on there as well. I'll just have the Google Map link where I could see where it is, but it will tell me that, today is a green go day. In a couple of days, we've got another green go day, and it will tell me what days are go days. And then that prompts us to communicate, but I can't go in and look at her burn yet in the prescribed burn planner, but that's an enhancement we'd like to add.
Okay. All right. Here's another question from Alcy. Alcy says, are there particular browsers that you guys would recommend for accessing that tool? It sounds like their agency or their organization has some settings that are making it difficult to use it. So have you seen any advantage to one browser versus another?
I've used them in every one, in Edge and Firefox and Chrome, and I've never really seen an issue. If you're seeing something, please contact me. If you're having, if you have some sort of setting and it's, preventing you from doing all you can with the prescribed burn planner, please let us know. We'd be interested in that kind of issue and working around that.
I will say one thing I have seen is, especially at the beginning, if there's a big update, sometimes you'll go to the prescribed burn planner and it'll just be a white screen and it'll have the login button, but the login button doesn't actually work. You have to clear your cache.
Okay.
And then once you clear your cache, it'll work. That has happened to me a couple of times. So like I said, that was with really big updates, or if you access the first version of the prescribed burn planner and it has everything saved on your computer that way, and you try to access the new one, it will also do that.
So will it work on a mobile device or a tablet? Have you tried that?
It can work on a larger tablet. It is not customized for a mobile device. That is also on the list of enhancements. We've got a very big wish list. We're trying to find a very big grant to fill it.
Good. It's good to have ideas. All right. Question from Ian. Is there a drop down to add certain smoke category days, which is says which probably varies by state, or certain vent rates?
No, not yet. So we just have the simple smoke model. We just wanted to get some smoke in there. But on my separate wish list is more robust smoke modeling and things like that. And then especially, I think one of the meteorology updates we want to make, not directly related to smoke, but just, we've been in an incredible drought down here in the Southeast. And currently that's not reflected in the burn planner. If we could bring in some kind of red flag warnings or, drought warnings to add to the planner, be like, hey, you have 100% of your conditions met, but guess what? You can't actually burn because it's way too dry. That's also in there. But and if they would like that, to please email us and tell us exactly what kind of smoke features they would like to see, and we will add it to our list.
I think smoke category day is a state level thing, right? I believe that North Carolina or Alabama uses that system for managing. It's like dispersion, I think. And same for event rate. All right. Here's a question from Michelle. Is Livory similar to the old Haynes index for good or bad forecast based on weather indicators? Could you talk about that?
So yeah, Livory is basically how likely you are to get a super fog event overnight. So not all areas use it. Not all National Weather Service offices forecast for it. But basically the higher the number is, the more likely you are to get a super fog event. So it's just based off of how likely you are to get in a traffic accident based on how likely fog is to form if you add smoke to the air.
It would be interesting to have a list of what forecast offices include things like Livory in their fire weather products. I've never seen that in one place together, but I've encountered it before where you talk with folks and you mention Livory and they're like, huh? And the same thing about what we just said about vent rate or category days. And some people, it's like the standard conversation about fire weather. And then you go to another forecast office or state and they're like, huh? It just depends.
Yeah, there have been some higher level discussions. I don't know if it's going to make it in because we don't want to overcomplicate the tool. But if we have something like, if we start talking, one of the requests is generate burn plans. Like, can it pop out a skeleton burn plan? But that's going to vary by state. So in the future, do we want to have something where it breaks down by state or breaks down by region to kind of get, the Livory that one region might use, but the other might not, straightened out. But like I said, that's higher level talks. And there is constantly a debate internally in the team if we want to make it more technical or less technical.
Question from Alan about the source of the National Weather Service data. Alan's asking, is it the same weather data that you would find in the fire weather poker or the fire? You remember that was one of the National Weather Service kind of portals for getting their fire weather data. Is it going to be the same?
It should be. This is the API from the National Weather Service. So any National Weather Service page, I've talked with fire weather meteorologists at other the National Weather Service sites, and they all should pull from that API. So it shouldn't be incredibly different. I mean, there might be some rounding errors here and there because it's converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit, but it should be fairly consistent. And if you're seeing large differences, let us know, and also let the National Weather Service offices know, because they're very interested if, one product's saying one thing and another product of theirs is saying something else.
Two questions here about your wind speeds. Is it 20-foot winds? Which winds are you talking about when you have winds forecast there? Not your transport winds. Is it surface winds?
Yeah, I believe it's the surface. Was it surface winds? Yeah, we went back and forth, but I think we ended up with surface winds.
Okay, I think we have probably some folks who want to follow up with you on that to be sure which it is, because we had a couple folks asking if which wind speed is included in the model. We had a link in the Q&A from Alan with specific link to that fire weather poker site. And then George says, can you set a percentage threshold for the email notifications for good burn days? Oh, that's a good question.
Not yet.
Okay.
We don't have that, but we were talking about that. Like I was talking about how one of my pet peeves is, it's a great tool, but I don't like it that it says I have a green burn day, but it's going to dump 1/2 inch of rain. So if there's a way that a user can rank them themselves, like maybe they don't care if their temperature is out of range or they don't care about the temperature at all, but they really care about the transport wind speed and the transport wind direction, if they can self-rank it higher. So that's one of the enhancements that we've been talking about.
Very good. Question from Nathan. How far in advance do emails get sent for when the forecast says it'll be a good burn day? That's a good question.
That is a good question. I mean, we get notifications every day if you've got upcoming green days for the next like 7 days. We can double check that though.
Yeah, I think as soon as it pops up on the
Yeah.
planner, like even if it's 7 days out and it says it's going to be a green burn day, it's going to send it as soon as that green pops up, it'll send it out. I think I get my notifications about 6 in the morning, Eastern time. But yeah, it'll have it out for as much, if it's able to pull out 7 days, it'll have out 7 days.
And those notification emails are going to be dynamic. So if it was an alignment 7 days out, but now the forecast has changed for tomorrow, you'll get an updated email that shows,
that day will drop off. It
good.
won't be listed as a good burn day anymore.
Very good. All right. Valerie says, can you adjust the weather information range or average to represent the time frame that you would likely burn? Oh, that's a good question. Point.
Yeah, that's a future enhancement.
Okay.
But yeah, we've talked about that as well because, a lot of times nobody's going to be burning from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. a prescribed burn like out here in the Southeast. So that's one of the things we've talked about to find the max, or maybe you don't want the max temperature, or maybe you don't want the minimum relative humidity. Like we're exploring, depending on, what future grants we get, how much freedom can we give without breaking the tool for everybody to adjust like the hours they want or the category weights, or, they only want to get flagged if the green's going to be 90% and above, not 75%. But I hate to keep saying it's a future enhancement, but a lot of it's a future enhancement.
I think it's a sign that you guys have started on something really good. Mart has a comment or a question. Mart says Triangle PBA uses a single sign-in so that we can each see each other's burn details. Okay, so they can kind of look collaboratively as to what they're doing. Otherwise, we can't see adjacent burns. Would there be a plan in the future to see others' burn unit, state, or nationwide? Thinking in terms of air sheds, which is good.
Yeah, we actually talked about that. We had it in a test feature in the beginning where you could see surrounding burns. So if somebody else in the burn planner put down a burn, it would be anonymized, but you could see that, a few blocks away, somebody's burning a 500-acre plot. So it didn't make it into final production. We're still kind of seeing, is that something feasible? Is that something people want? Are we going to run into privacy sharing issues? So that's something we're exploring in, again, a future update. But that's also on we have an extensive list.
Kyle asked, I think we covered this, but maybe you could touch on it, or maybe they missed. Is the burn window set to send you emails based on growing or dormant seasons only? And what are the parameters set for the burn window selection? Kyle says.
It's mainly for the weather forecast. So I'm not sure if you could filter. I think you can, it's just based on, so the burn window, the general one that you see for setting in the attributes, it's more of a filtering tool for the table and the map, but the email subscription's more about like your weather forecast. That makes sense.
Yep. I think so. And then Kyle also asked, can you delete burn units that you've already created?
No, we get asked that all the time too.
Oh,
And
so
I'm
once you
sure
have one, it's in there.
it is in there, and you can inactivate it. I don't know if you remember that little inactivate tool I showed
Uh-huh.
you. I would do that, and you can just easily filter it out, and you don't have to look at it. But yeah, that's another future enhancement. That's actually one of the top things is people want to be able to delete them. So I mean, yeah, it seems obvious, but yeah, it's not. I think that's one thing we went back and forth on, and we just did the inactivate tool.
Yeah, I think it ended up being a shocking amount of code reworking that had to happen to be able to delete them.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, you have limited funding. It's just like, okay, we'll just
I
inactivate.
I am not a programmer, so to me that just seems pretty funny. Carolyn says, when will this presentation be posted? And Carolyn, we're gonna try and have this up within a couple of weeks. So we'll have it on our YouTube channel. So thanks for asking. Chuck says, what is the source of the sensitive receptor data that shows up in your smoke models? That's a good question.
Oh,
The
the
sensitive area data layer.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just ESRI map services, usually from the federal government. They're already out. If you use ESRI ArcGIS Online, which is a cloud service, they're already out there and available. If you're interested in the specific services, let me know. I've got a list of them, so that's not a problem. So
Okay.
yeah, we don't like manually update them or anything. It's just from what we could get from the feds or other sources. So
Question from Lou. Lou says, how far out does the program look at the National Weather Service forecast? So what's the extent?
Yeah, you mean in temporally,
Days.
it's the 7
Temp-
days,
7 days.
and then it's all of the United States. So anywhere there's a National Weather Service forecast office we can pull. So that means that prescribed burn planner does not work in Canada or surrounding areas. It's only, since we use the National Weather Service data, it's only pulling from where there's a National Weather Service location that services the areas.
I think we covered this, but we're going to do it anyways. Brian says, is there a mechanism that shows the partners or neighbor burns that are happening on the same day? And then also says, will it still show a good burn day, even if there might be a local burn ban in place?
Yeah, so it doesn't show local burns. It's an enhancement we would like to add. But yeah, that's something that I didn't really think about at the time when we were talking about all the weather parameters. It took us a while to get the weather parameters correct, but I think there definitely needs to be, there's a red flag warning on this day. There needs to be some kind of special weather override, or maybe we have a severe thunderstorm watch or a tornado watch. You probably don't want to start a fire when you could have a tornado come through. But I think that might be interesting, like those extreme weather events that we would want to add.
Lauren says it would be useful, add to your list, if we could import layers to show property boundaries, not necessarily burn units, but the overall management units. I can see that certainly being helpful for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's any number of different geospatial data layers that you might want to be able to pull in to show or to put onto these maps. Elsie says, thank you very much. After 40 minutes, the map partially appeared. This is following up to their earlier question, but not responsible. Not responsive. Cleared the cache. Perhaps our network is insufficient. Not able to paste a screenshot here, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Do you have any experience of running this on maybe a weaker connection?
I haven't had a problem with it, but I'd say reach out to me or Karen.
Yeah.
Karen especially, she's a little bit more technical at troubleshooting that stuff, but we can figure it out if it's a connection issue, or maybe everyone's just hitting it up right now because it's really popular. Probably not that, but it was loading pretty fast. But yeah, we can help you work through it.
Very good. Paul says, do the GPS coordinates auto-populate in the planner if you don't have them? Like, so can you go ahead and just indicate it on the map and it'll auto-populate your GPS coordinates?
Yeah, like if you just draw your burn unit.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So, Paul, you don't need to have the GPS coordinates. As long as you can find it on the map, you'll be able to make it work.
Correct. And there's different, I think Karen mentioned it, there's different layers you could choose. So if you like a particular Esri layer better than the other to help you outline your burn unit, you can pick that.
Yeah, there's different base maps. So if you don't like the imagery, you can choose something else and all that. So.
Okay. Here's an interesting question from William. William says, can you load the same burn unit multiple times with different names so that you can imitate or simulate a range of different burn scenarios for a single unit? That's a good question.
Yeah,
I don't see why you couldn't.
I've never tried, but I don't, there's nothing specifically that I know of unless there's some code buried deep somewhere where you couldn't do that.
Yeah. But I can see that, different times of the year, you might have different preferred wind directions, or maybe you have different parameters you want for your dormant season or growing season or whatever your burn objectives are within that particular area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've heard all kinds of ways people use this, so it's kind of interesting to hear different ways that people are utilizing it.
Here's another one for your list from Chris. Chris says another possible future enhancement I'd love to see is fuel moisture forecast for 1 to 10 and 100-hour fuels. Yes. 2 other thumbs up on that one.
That's a familiar request.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see. Oh, Lonnie has an interesting comment. Is it possible to include first responder contacts to this planner so that if something gets out of control, you can immediately tag that source to expedite an emergency call? Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And we've also, one of the things that's on the list, we've talked about whether to add like PBA contact information or like local contractors or something like that, that service your particular burned area. So that contact information would be in there. And I believe somebody called it like Tinder for burning, if we could put that in there.
Very good. All right. Well, lots of updates that we've talked about today. So thank you all so much for your presentation. I don't know if you all have been able to see in the chat, there's a lot of positive feedback and kudos for the tool. I think there's folks on here that have definitely worked with it and already gained a lot of benefit from it. So thank you. I'm going to trade out presentations here in a second, get your contact information on the screen. But as we do so, do you have any final comments that you'd like to wrap things up with?
I think just as we've said, we've got a meeting at the end of the week. We're actively writing grants. We've already written, tried to pitch a couple to get the next burn planner out. So if you hear of any grants you think might be a fit or have extra money laying around, just let us know. But no, like you said, we've got a long list, probably more than we could get to, and even a couple of updates. But we're always willing to hear feedback and add that to our list.
Yeah, we really appreciate all the feedback people have provided, whether they're encountering an issue or have an idea. That's really been kind of the backbone of all of this. So we really appreciate it.
And I know Karen mentioned at the beginning, but of course, the Forest Service Region 8 gave us the funding for this to resurrect it from the version 1, and Tall Timbers took over the ownership of it so we can keep it updated and keep it relevant with the science information, and to the Timmins Group, who they're the developers behind it. They're the ones we reach out to when there's a technical problem. They're the ones hosting it. So it's been just wanted to make sure that they're also recognized in this.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you all for your presentation today. Thanks for taking the leap and doing the live demonstration in the browser. Having done this many times, I know that is a leap of faith, and thank you for taking that risk in doing so. I think it's quite helpful to actually see it live. Yeah. If you'd like to follow up with Holly or Karen, we've got their email addresses on the screen. Please do so and send them any feedback for this tool. They actively are involved in this project and are committed to its success. So with that, thanks everybody. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Karen. Really enjoyed your presentation today, and I hope you got to see all the positivity in the chat.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.